No. Here's the link. Okay, let's see if I've got anyone yet. But it doesn't look like it. Okay, gonna wait a bit for people to show up. People are less active in the summers, it seems, because I'm talking for the one viewer who just joined, and for the people who'll be watching it later. Apparently, there's a seasonality to YouTube. There are fewer viewers active in the summer, but still managing to grow, so that's good. Hello from Regensburg. Where is that? Is that in Germany? Sounds German. Could also be like Dutch or something, I guess, or even Old English. We have 2 live viewers now. So yeah, where is Regensburg? Might as well. Let's put some. Oh, in Bavaria. Okay, cool. What shall I play? I'm a little bit concerned about playing piano on stream because some melodies are like gonna get my stream copyrighted. But I think this one was fine. Jakarta. Okay, I don't know where that is. What time signature is that even? It's a 3444. I don't know. Don't remember. Okay, 44 seems. Oh, maybe not. Yeah, it doesn't seem. Whatever. Wait, how does one? Jakarta is Indonesia. Ah, I see. I actually considered Indonesia as a destination for like when I wanted to immigrate from Denmark, but I wound up settling on the Czech Republic. But I was considering Indonesia, the Philippines, India, Thailand, Vietnam, the Czech Republic, Croatia, and El Salvador. Those were the locations I was considering. Anyway, how does one go from low to high voice in medium volume without cracking or disconnecting? So there are several different pathways you can use here. So you could use well, it depends on, of course, what you mean by medium volume, because maybe your medium volume is gonna be like what I think of as quiet volume, and then what I'm about to say will not make much sense. But you could do like light belting. And you could also do mixed voice. I guess you could do a light mixed voice if you want it to be lighter volume. You could also try to transition to falsetto by going through pharyngeal voice or pharyngalized mix. Pharyngalized mix might be slightly easier to make the transition to falsetto, but it's harder to get from chest voice to a strongly pharyngalized mix. Yeah, it's so if you wanna be if you wanna be at a sort of a quieter volume, a sort of medium quiet volume, then you'd want to transition to falsetto fairly early, and that's a fair bit harder. I'm actually not very good at the transitions below A4 or so. But to do that, you basically just need to take the pharyngalized mix lower. And to make sure it's sufficiently pharyngalized, try starting by taking the pharyngeal voice lower. But anyway, the easiest way is to start by finding pharyngeal voice. So it will just help you get more facility with softer dynamics in the high range, right? So if you were just doing mixed voice the whole time, right, and you're doing a strong, loud mixed voice, then you wouldn't get particularly medium volume. It would be fairly loud, right? Go, go. Morning voice. Hang on. Go, go. That's pretty loud, right? And that's sort of a standard mixed voice. But if I want to find a softer volume at that pitch range, I don't know why I'm wearing these. I would start with a cry register, which is already fairly advanced, but you know, not too difficult to learn. If you got the hang of chest register, you can learn cry register pretty easily. So the hard part really there is getting the hang of chest register. But anyway, so start from then make that lighter by making it brighter, right? A higher larynx, more pharyngeal narrowing. Now I have this sound, right? And then just slide from there into falsetto. Don't worry about a voice crack. If you slide back and forth a couple of times, the voice crack will disappear. And then you have a sort of light pharyngeal voice. And then you can just incorporate that into anything you want to make lighter. You can sort of take it a bit in the direction of pharyngeal voice. You can pharyngalize your cry register. You can pharyngalize your mixed voice. You know, you can even pharyngalize your chest register without going all the way to pharyngeal voice. And then yeah, that will give you a lighter sound. What do you think about Brett Manning and Ken Tamplin? So Ken Tamplin I like, mostly like his personality is iconic, which is to me always such a redeeming quality that I will forgive almost everything else if a personality is sufficiently iconic. You know, I'm probably one of the very few people in the world who cannot help but stand both Kamala Harris and Orange Man, because both are just so iconic. I think there's actually very, very, very little overlap between the fan bases, but you know, but more than just his iconic personality, like the strategies he teaches are basically sound for one particular way of singing high notes in modal voice, right? He can't really teach anything that relies on other methods, right? So he made a demonstration one time of R&B singing, and it wasn't great. It sounded like a rock singer trying to sing R&B, which is of course what it was. So he really can only teach you how to sound like a rock star, and a particular kind of rock star. But he can teach you how to do that, and that's better than the vast majority of voice teachers. So he's definitely up there, but he's not quite a first rater. But he is quite good. Brett Manning, yeah, I don't know if I can give him that much praise. It's like basically SLS but with new marketing. SEA. Oh, Southeast Asia. Okay. We chatted for a while on Discord. Indonesia is quite cheap, like most of Southeast Asia. Yeah, so that was part of the appeal of choosing Indonesia as a destination. I mean, so the Czech Republic is also already a lot cheaper than Denmark. It's like the yeah, basically everything in the Czech Republic is a third as expensive as in Denmark. Although apparently that's still a bit more expensive than in the USA. Americans really have a lot of advantages when it comes to starting things like this. They have a bigger market, they can earn more money doing it. They also have lower taxes usually than in Europe, and lower cost of living. It's brutal to be a European trying to make a living on the internet. But anyway, who's my favorite online vocal coach except Voice Studio East and West? Well, there would probably be I don't know. I don't want to like offend my other friends, but because I have several friends, and there's one of them I would. Well, okay. What the hell? I'm just gonna go ahead and say it anyway. It's Tony Linke. Tony Linke. I don't know how the German is supposed to be pronounced, but yeah, and that's because he's probably the world's foremost expert in rough vocal effects. Yeah. That would be my answer to that. Any more questions? We have how many live viewers do we have? We have 6 live viewers, so there should be plenty to ask more questions and prevent the chat from dying. Yeah, my playing is so sloppy today. And I make it even worse immediately. Oh wow. I'm quite sleep deprived. Maybe that's right. Or maybe I'm just terrible at piano. So yeah, any more questions? We gotta have more questions. Did I miss any questions? Doesn't look like it. Am I proficient in jazz? Not really. I mean, I had to do a little bit of jazz for university, but I don't remember any of it. But there was. But this is like a very academic take on bossa nova. It's not authentic at all. Some obvious and not so obvious effects of alcohol and smoking on the voice. So alcohol doesn't really directly affect the voice, but it has basically three effects to watch out for when it comes to singing. One is it dehydrates you, so it sort of can dry up all your mucous membranes, including your vocal folds. But you can prevent this by just making sure to stay sufficiently hydrated. So that effect can be completely neutralized by, water and salt and such. You gotta maintain the electrolyte balance as well. You gotta drink Brondo. It has what the plants crave. I don't know if anybody knows that reference. But yeah. So the first effect is dehydration. The second effect is that you'll be less aware of like whether you're shouting in haphazard manners while drunk. A lot of people have pretty terrible shouting technique. So they'll be at like a loud party and they'll be drunk and they'll be shouting the whole night, and the shouting technique will be terrible, so they'll be hoarse. And the third effect is it's like if you're singing while drunk, you might be less lucid than usual, and you might make some pretty questionable decisions. And that's sort of the 3 effects of alcohol. Smoking is a little bit more severe because like there's some sort of chemical process that takes place. I think, what is it? Is it like some sort of like I don't know. Anyway, the effects of smoking on the voice are, I believe, permanent, but let me see if I can look it up. That's difficult, but my keyboard isn't working. Oh no, it's really not working. I still have like a small table next to me where I can place the external keyboard. In some people, smoking apparently thickens the vocal cords. That's odd. Yeah, anyway. I don't know too much about smoking and the voice, honestly. I'm just sort of going by things I vaguely remember. I don't really smoke myself, but maybe I should research the matter just to be able to explain it, to provide warnings to people who smoke. God. That seems so, well. Dancing in a swirl of golden memory, the loveliest life of all. Anyway, more questions. We're running out of questions. People, this might be a bit of a slow day or something. Maybe that's it. So yeah, as we were sort of talking about at the start of the stream, before anybody really showed up, YouTube seems to be less active in the summer months, so it's sort of harder to get views, and probably also harder to get people to tune in to live streams. Yeah, so I mean, it's been stigmatized a lot, and as you say, it may not. It is not necessarily the concern per se. So it's like, I think intuitively, I'd say that smoking will at worst have effects that are similar to being a bit hoarse. Not like extremely hoarse necessarily, but you should still be able to sing. Like, your registration at loud volumes should still work basically the same as before. The chest register might lack a little bit of buzz, and the but it's really just this softer mixed voice and that sort of stuff that might fail. That's my intuition anyway. What can be concerning? People living in countries with higher levels of air pollution, where breathing in the regular air can be compared to smoking a few cigarettes a day. That seems like pretty severe air pollution. If it's, but yeah, I guess in industrial towns in like developing nations. Anyway, more questions. This is I'm not putting the onus on like very few people. It looks like there are only four people watching. This is a new low, I think. That's too bad. Although Zach will be coming pretty soon, I think, and it's probably going to be quite active with asking questions. Anyway, the questions don't have to be about singing. If you can't think of any singing related questions, you can also just ask for my thoughts on anything. Although they'll probably be quite strange thoughts. um, Why are opera singers lousy at singing contemporary songs? I mean, because they haven't practiced it. They would have, like, it's a different skill set. They'd have to learn that this kind of skill set first. Their experience with opera will make it faster to learn those skills, but they might overlook some important skills that make them still that will make them still sound like opera singers trying to sing contemporary. But yeah, it's sort of like what would it be? Let's say it's like a skilled carpenter who has mostly been making who's been making like chairs and tables and like closets and stuff like that, and who is now trying to become a luthier, like making guitars and violins and such. It's a different skill set. He's probably going to learn it faster because he has a lot of the sort of requisite skills, but there are also some of the requisite skills he doesn't have, and even the ones he does have, he's going to have to use in a different way. So it's not a transition that you can just make completely straightforwardly, but there is also a certain relation. So it's also not quite like completely starting over from scratch. Yeah, this is really the same thing in both directions. You know, contemporary singers singing opera, there are a lot of rather disappointing renditions of Nessun Dorma in particular. So it's really just there are different skill sets, and you need to practice them separately. Otherwise, it's not gonna otherwise it's not gonna sound good. So yeah, tips on yodeling. So it's pretty straightforward. So part of the sound of yodeling comes from the interval having to be a sixth. So minor sixth or major sixth doesn't really matter, but make sure it's a sixth, not a fifth, for example. Yeah, you just you do voice cracks while flipping from open vowels to closed vowels. Right? Yodeling. You know, pretty straightforward. And then you practice doing that faster and faster, and you can just, and then you can yodel. It's so pretty simple. Try to make sure that both sides of the voice crack are fairly strong. So don't have this like timid yodeling, but it should be more like a shout down there and more like a whoop up there. Right, so yodeling, like pretty strong, like pretty donkey like. Gotta channel your inner donkey. Yeah, we now have only. Because people don't like. No, actually, no, that brought back some heroes. Okay, we now have 4 heroes. This really is a slow day. Yeah. More questions. I feel like I'm pretty demanding with more questions. Why I didn't move to Indonesia instead? I think I was looking at so I was looking at a number of things. I don't remember quite what made me prefer the Czech Republic over Indonesia, but I was looking at things like the sort of this overall trajectory of the politics, and I was also looking at the healthcare system and the cost of living, and the sort of the level of hostility to foreigners. So those four factors I was looking at, and um, Czech actually scored worst on the healthcare fund of all the countries I compared, which is not surprising because it's Europe. Europe just has Europe has notoriously good healthcare, though in fact it's just awful. Like Europe has awful healthcare by like actual statistics, but it has notoriously good healthcare by reputation. I don't know why. Well, actually, I do know why. It's because it's because they're basically optimizing for appearances. So they have good healthcare if you just need a broken bone set or something, like things that regular people might encounter several times in their life. But if you become dependent on the healthcare system, it's really terrible. Where in the Czech Republic am I? I am in a small town called Uhlířské Janovice. I hope I pronounced that right. I didn't pronounce it quite right, I think. But it's a suburb to Kutná Hora, but that's a little bit misleading because actually it's more like a gathering point for surrounding villages. So it's really a market town. And yeah, it has 3,000 inhabitants, so quite small. It takes 1.5 hours to get into Prague. A bit more than 1.5 hours, actually, almost 2 hours. Yeah, but it's like very nice people. And it's it's close to Prague. It's in Středočeský kraj. My Czech is not very good. But yeah, so in Bohemia, in like central Bohemia, Indonesia is foreigner exchange rate heaven. Yeah, I think I was looking at was it the healthcare system and the diabetes fund? No, probably not. It might have been. Might also have been like tax rates. I was also looking at tax rates. There was another one. Was it tax rates? Probably not. People wouldn't be moving there as expats. Then again, they do move to other places that had like high taxes. Did I actually forget to consider Indonesia? Maybe I forgot to include Indonesia in my comparison. That would be pretty unfortunate. Oh wait, isn't hang on, let me see. I think yeah, I remember now. Yeah, it's because Indonesia is an island nation, and I'm expecting, I have a pretty low opinion of the overall stability of like international production structures, and I don't want to be sort of suddenly cut off from insulin. So yeah, I actually excluded Indonesia because it's an island nation, which is very unfortunate. Yeah, I think I would have gone with Indonesia if not for that particular concern. But yeah, I was basically concerned that that sort of modernity would locally collapse in certain areas, and that I might not have access to insulin. Like that there might be some like collapse of infrastructure that prevents access. So I had some scares with that actually in Denmark, which is like which is shocking to most people, because you wouldn't imagine that this sort of thing can happen in Denmark. But yeah, it did. They had insulin rationing for way longer than makes sense from like pandemic policies, like way longer after the lockdowns were ended. And they had domestic insulin manufacture, like production as well, but yeah, they kept up the rationing. There are supply issues with like the injection needles as well, and I was like, this is scary. And yeah, and that's that made me think it's important to wherever I live, it's important to be able to pack up and like move to another country in a day, because like I think my life could wind up depending on that, depending on how things go. So yeah. How I decided to go to the Czech Republic or to this particular small town, which one do you mean? So the Czech Republic I decided on because low taxes for entrepreneurs, secular Catholic culture was a big plus in my book, because I wanted to get out of the Protestant Europe. They have a sort of evangelical personality that's a little bit fanatical and crazy, even in the secular Protestant. Actually, especially in the secular Protestant nations, this is really ultra Protestant. Like Denmark is probably the most extremely Protestant culture you'll find anywhere. Well, maybe, I mean, there's California too, I guess. But yeah, I wanted the Czech Republic because it's it doesn't have that like evangelical craziness, but it's also not hardcore Catholic. It's just sort of secular Catholic, so it's a very chill culture, very sort of very down to earth. How I decided on this small town? Well, I basically looked at at like houses for rent. I looked at this webpage, and I really cast the net wide. And I wanted a freestanding house to rent, and fairly cheaply. Not too big a yard, because I don't really like have to maintain a big yard. Um, and yeah, it had to be within proximity of a station, and some places to buy groceries and so on. Um, and yeah, it just wound up being this place. So I basically decided on it because the offer seemed appealing. Um, how are your fellow voice studio Easters? Easters, interesting, interesting coinage. Um, let's see. Since you asked for questions, ask your opinion on matters other than singing. So here's one. What do you think about the automobile industry's obsession with popularizing uh, electric vehicles and rejecting? I'm not quite sure what ICE is, but I'm assuming it's vehicles that aren't electric. So yeah, this is basically a political project. It's very prone to themos, which is like this aristocratic hunger to wield power. George Orwell talks about this in 1984, where it's basically, to really feel like you're in power, you have to have people you can wield power over, and that's basically what makes it so appealing. There are a lot less, this. Uh, like the cloud seeding thing is very controversial, but theoretically it ought to work. But it was like nobody was talking about that, because it doesn't feel powerful. It doesn't allow you to wield power over other people, so it's not politically exciting, right? There's no fight involved. There's nobody who would really like resist that argument. Well, I guess like there are people by now who are sufficiently suspicious of any such policy that they'll immediately fight it. But until then, at least, nobody would seriously offer resistance, and so there was no like glory of victory, and so so it wasn't very politically appealing. Electric vehicles, on the other hand, are very politically appealing, and they're part of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, or is that the WEF? Yeah, I think it's the WEF. Like the 17, the WEF have their like 17 goals, that headed by Klaus Schwab. I don't know how much he actually like determines it. But yeah, it's this it's at least theoretically, if you have if you have electric vehicles, and you can have like sustainable you can sort of power them in sustainable manners, and that's very politically appealing, because people don't really understand how the economic processes of like scarce resources work. There's a sort of automatic rationing you get just from having the price mechanism, because when there's sort of questions about whether the supply of oil, for example, will dry up, which is unlikely actually at this point, because there's so much there's there's like there's still a lot of oil supply, and fossil fuels are another case. There's like a lot of there's a lot of fossil fuels, because basically we're in a period where a lot of the carbon of the earth has been sort of trapped in the soil from like from previous warm periods. And yeah, so we actually have unusually little carbon in the atmosphere. We also have plants that are adapted, of course, to unusually low amounts of carbon. So there's a little bit of disagreement about whether more carbon in the atmosphere would actually foster more plant growth or not, because it's sort of different from the environment that the existing plants are adapted to. So it's also a question of how quickly can they adapt. But anyway, it's this political project that has basically just gone completely off the rails, as far as I can tell. People getting sort of very hyped up about solar power in particular. And then, at least theoretically, you could power electric vehicles via solar power. It's questionable to what extent that will be done. You could also power them by fossil fuels, like burning fossil fuels to generate electricity, and then you haven't really made anything more sustainable. I guess if they use less power, but I don't think they do. Yeah. And like a lot of like there's a lot of fossil fuels combustion associated with their production, so that's another consideration. Anyway, how are male singers like Dimash and Gabriel Henrik able to fake an almost authentic female voice? I'm not sure who the latter person is, but basically they use countertenor technique. It's like you just like develop the falsetto to be very strong. And you can even do it without the clear falsetto. You can just like make it very bright and like pleasant falsetto. Like quando sono solo sogno all'orizzonte mancano le parole. Sì, lo so che non c'è luce in una stanza quando manca il sole. Se non ci sei tu con me come su le finestre. You just develop the falsetto a lot, and you make it quite bright. You can make it quite bright to have this female sound. But to make it strong, like to make it bright and to make it strong, there's sort of two different things involved. To make it bright, you do this bright sighing quality, ha, ha. And to make it strong, that also gives you some agility. It removes this windedness. The beginners often have in the falsetto this, ha, ha, ha. Right? We don't want that. We want less airflow actually, which at first will probably reduce the volume, right? If you have this shape, if I reduce the airflow, I get less volume, right? But I can bring the volume back up by changing this shape. And then yeah, that will also have more agility. And then you do the whooping, where you take a whoopy sound low in pitch. So you go, woo, woo, and you take that low, woo, 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 right? And you switch to E, woo, E, but trying to keep this whoopy sound in there. And then you try to keep that spacious quality, but aside from that, make it as bright as possible. So there's still a little bit of that underlying, like still a bit of that in the sound. Then you can open from there to other vowels like A and E and O. Right, and then you have basically a developed falsetto. Now in this upper fourth octave, like around A4 to D5 or so, you will need to develop second form and third harmonic tuning in your falsetto in order to have your vowels sound like pleasant and bright. Otherwise, you'll get into this where that's your ah suddenly, and you need more this kind of ah. It's a little bit lame. Why is it so lame sounding today? a bit better, but yeah. So you need that F2H3 tuning in this range, and yeah, that's sort of how to develop good countertenor technique, I guess. And yeah. I'm not sure if Gabriel Henrique does the same thing. Only know Dimash. If you want to get a more feminine quality in your modal voice, you basically just gotta add a lot of middle twang. So middle twang is what sounds like this, right? It has a little bit of a crying quality to the sound, but it's actually not cry quality. It's a little bit of a different thing. It's like you can think of it as the Valley Girl accent, like, oh my God, Stacy, I did not think he was gonna do that, right? Add that quality to your sound a little bit, and you'll get a much more feminine sound. And raise the larynx, a bit less metal in your chest register, all of that, and it will sound more feminine. Because if I do, but try comparing the way I would normally sing this. It won't be easy, you'll think it's strange when I try. I'm not very good at voice feminization, I think, but. It won't be easy, it won't be easy, you'll think it's strange when I try to explain how I feel. And you can go a bit further in that direction. This isn't enough to get a properly feminine sound, but you can hopefully hear it a little bit in that direction. You can actually do that without making it quite as bright, and then you'll have a sort of more mature feminine sound. But yeah. How many viewers do I have now? Now I have 7. Okay, that ought to be enough that we can get a more lively, active chat. But meanwhile, I guess I will sing something while waiting for questions. What shall we take? No, actually, is that copyrighted? Hang on. Is that gonna get me a... Well, I guess it won't. It will just get me this. Gonna get that anyway from. Let me see. Oh, that's a minuet in D minor. Really? That's copyrighted. How is that not public domain when it's written several hundred years ago? Anyway, yeah, I better not do this because I might, lose the. Yeah, that is the match. Very, very cool stuff. So yeah, it's very soft because it's like direct to garment, which makes it slightly less bright than it would otherwise be. Although the video filters I have on increase the contrast and make it look brighter than it is. But it's bright enough, it looks quite good. And yeah, it comes with like this weird strong chemical smell, which is apparently a sealant to make sure the print like stays longer, but this smell will go away the first time you wash it. I don't know why they don't pre-wash it so people aren't surprised by this like chemical smell, but yeah, it's anyway. Halo, what is, how am I supposed to read that? Hey Lou, I don't know, but hello. Question: does going higher and having a feeling of holding on to M1 mean it's hyper compressed, or is that feeling of holding on actually more to do with vowel tightness? If I try not to hold on, let me see. I think it's more to do with like the curving hold actually. I'm not sure if it's going to be hypercompression necessarily. I don't think it necessarily. I think it can involve hypercompression, but I don't think it always does. But I think it's pretty much always some variety of this curving hold, this sort of restraint. Abhijit says, I had a burning question. What's your favorite spine movement these days? So it's really like there are 2 spine movements that are my favorites, and one is basically just a reverse of the other. So one is this rising movement, right? And the other is this falling movement. So those 2 movements, and It looks clean, man. Yeah, it really is. It's very very nice. And yeah, so the advantage of DTG printing is it retains its like soft quality, whereas if I did direct to film printing, it would have this like thickness to it. Um, Also, do you recruit the neck whilst moving the spine? Yes, the movement is in the whole, like, here I have flexion everywhere, including in the neck. And then, there's this movement at the same time, usually. Although it depends. Sometimes the falling movement goes more like this. Well, yeah. Anyway, I look majestic doing it, thank you. It's supposed to be pretty majestic, so you can like get that drama. Because I sing a lot of dramatic songs that require a certain majesty, like how can I leave her? Where would I start? It needs to be bombastic. I actually find this is helpful for maintaining balance as well. If you're like standing on one leg or something and you need to maintain balance, try making sure your lumbar spine is constantly in motion. And if you want to make it look like you're standing still, you just got to make those motions smaller, but make sure that the lumbar spine is involved. Right. So I think that's basically the difference between, when you were like telling science to make the movements larger. That's basically to get a deeper engagement of the spine, to make it less superficial. It's not even really the size of the motion that's important. It's just that the motion is sufficiently deep. And that's sort of more easily accomplished with a larger movement. But you could theoretically do it like this, and this would be fully sufficient. Right? It's just, but I mean, at that point it might get a little bit janky. You also want to prevent it from being janky like that. It's going to lead to weird interruptions in your legato, and it's going to lead to sort of a stiffness that tends to go together with the restrained quality. How is my audio quality this time, by the way? Is it less like reverberant than last time? Because I was listening back to the stream last time, and I wasn't completely content with the audio quality. So now I have a bit less compression, which should bring up the background, like the reverb of the room a bit less. And I think I have more aggressive. I added the de-reverb filter, so hopefully it's a bit less reverberant now. Yeah, how does the audio sound? Are people like pleased with the sound of the audio this time? Give you a minute to answer that. What can I play that won't be copyrighted? I haven't really started earning like ad revenue yet because I'm still missing 10 watch hours. Or am I still actually? Now that was yesterday. No, I'm probably not. Now I'm not. Yes, it's good. I have hit the 4K watch hours. Now I can get ad revenue. I will get like $10 per month. It sounds crisp. That's good. That's good. Yeah. I don't know if it would be $10 per month. It's just a guess. I think there's actually a rule against talking about like how much you earn, but hopefully it's fine to when it's half a joke and it's it's only a guess. Hopefully that won't get me in trouble with YouTube. But yeah. Anyway, yeah, these summer months are a bit brutal because people really are much less active on YouTube, it seems. But hopefully by the end of summer, I will like my channel will get some renewed growth again. I mean, it is still growing. It's just a struggle. But at least I'm sort of ahead of schedule now. So I already have the script for next week's, for I guess the video to come out at the end of this week. I've already finished that script, so that's helpful at least. Anyway, more questions. Gotta have more questions. Always more questions. Maybe this will get copyrighted. How does it go? I don't remember it well enough. I would need my sheet music, which is right here, but I can't put that up without blocking the webcam. So that's too bad. Otherwise, I'd play more Naruto music for you. Oh, a super chat. Thank you. Yalu Halu. I am loving these Yalu Halo. I don't know how that's pronounced. Sorry. I'm loving these live streams. They feel very wholesome and tightly knitted as a community. We appreciate you. Thank you. Can you notify subscribers when you do these live sets? I hope it was already notifying subscribers. Otherwise, you know, YouTube is sabotaging me a bit. But part of the problem is that they don't really. So YouTube is very quick to conclude that people have lost interest in a channel, even if they've subscribed to it. So if there are like a couple of new videos where you don't click when they're suggested, then YouTube will basically stop recommending my content, which is pretty brutal policy. And I don't think it's particularly wise on YouTube's part, actually. Yeah, it's. But if you want to increase the likelihood of getting notified, ring that bell button. But even that bell button doesn't guarantee it, as far as I can tell. So yeah, I can't really, I can't really control these things in that way, unfortunately. Very good. So yeah, although I do send notifications out over Discord. Maybe I will I will add some sort of what's it called, RSS thing, RSS feed, where you can like sign up to get notifications, or just like a mailing list or something, so that there are more ways people have of like being notified of new content in case YouTube decides not to recommend it. That might be helpful. How do you help someone who's not tone deaf but struggles with pitch accuracy? It's just you just gotta practice a bunch of scales, and if that's not enough, then you gotta like do some ear training. It can be helpful to like learn to play the piano, because like the piano really sort of visually lays out the diatonic scale, yeah, but it's also it's you gotta. So the question is are the pitch problems technical, or are they like ear related? Like, is it the ear training that's a problem, or is it the technique that's a problem? If it's a technique, then I solve the problems with the technique. Then it's just like regular teaching. If it's the if it's the ear training, like if it's like the sense of tonality that's not strong enough, then then I might have you do some ear training, like interval recognition, teach you solfege, which is this, you know, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, with the hand signs. Hand signs help, actually, like help build stronger association. Because what we're really looking for is this multimodal, cross-modal perception. What is it called, actually? Same thing as like in synesthesia, but there are certain forms of synesthesia that are basically normal. Anyway, any chance of posting yourself singing complete songs? The tutorials are excellent. So I posted 2 so far. One is Ashes by Celine Dion, and like another is Over the Garden, well, the intro from Over the Garden Wall, called Into the Unknown. But I called the I think I put yeah, Over the Garden Wall, Into the Unknown. In the thumbnail, I just have Over the Garden Wall, because I don't want people expecting the Disney Into the Unknown and then, you know, feel let down. It is not the song they expected. And that one is more famous. But yeah, I said led through the mist by the midnight of moon, all that was lost, all that was lost is revealed. Along bygone burdens we are echoes of the spring, but where have we come? And where shall we end? If dreams can come true, then why not pretend? Oh, how the gentle wind beckons through the leaves as autumn colors fall, dancing in a swirl of golden memories, the loveliest lives of all. I'm messing it up. Anyway, I've released that one. I've released the cover of that one. I plan to once I'm done with the register series and possibly one more video, I plan to take a bit of a hiatus from the weekly schedule and prepare a sort of exclusive singing course called the Fundamentals of Singing course. Yeah, it will be available for purchase. I might sort of crowdfund it. It will also feature like working through 5 songs, maybe 6, we'll see. And I will post covers of those as I prepare them. You know, I will be learning the accompaniment anyway, and so I might as well make a cover out of it. Yeah, that will happen. So there will be some covers after the register series. And there'll also be a course at some point. It will probably take a bit over 2 months, maybe 3 months even, to prepare that course. But it should be quite high quality. It will probably also be somewhat expensive though. Like I'm thinking I will probably price it at $200 for the whole course. But if you want it cheaper, you can participate in the crowdfunding campaign I'm gonna start soon. Yeah, piano does give a great advantage when it comes to having a sense of tonality. But it's also possible to have very severe pitch issues that are caused by a technique. So to like really be sure that it's the ear training that's missing, try giving a couple of like very basic sort of recognition like tests. Like for example, um, you can like you can try like having them try to tell whether something is resolved or not, right? So you can place a melody that goes like, you know, and ask them, does this feel resolved? And then, you know, you show something where you do resolve it, and like you just show like, can they tell whether, you know, whether you've run back at the tonic, maybe without the the chordal accompaniment actually, because that gives it away too much. But something like, you know, and ask them, does that feel resolved? Uh, and if they can tell that consistently, then their sense of tonality is probably fine, and what's actually missing is the technique. You don't need like strong, like really strong ear skills to sing in tune. You basically just need a strong sense of tonality, and then at least you should be able to sing the major scale. Like if you can sing the major scale, but you in tune, but you can't sing other things in tune, then maybe you need more advanced ear training. But like first just make sure that they can recognize the major scale and feel like can tell when it's resolved and when it's not. And if they can do that, then they should also be able to sing it. And if they aren't, then it's a technique issue rather than an ear training issue. Anyway, more questions. Questions. I don't know why I pronounce it that way. But, how many viewers still live? I'm so sleep deprived today. It was so warm. It's so warm in this place. It's like 30 degrees Celsius, which is a lot for me. I'm not used to that. I'm from the cold north, you know. So 30 degrees is just really for me. Is this one public domain? Probably not. I better stream myself before I get a copyright strike. Apparently, like Bach's Minuet in D minor is still copyright protected. Like I don't know how many years after it was written, but several hundred years after. So. More questions. Oh, what's your first language? Danish, which is a weird language because it's missing a lot of words. Like there are a lot of things you just can't really say in Danish. It actually has almost this Orwellian quality because there are a lot of things that are important to be able to say, and that you just cannot say. The word prejudice, for example, does not exist in Danish. Well, there's a word that originally meant prejudice, but has come to mean stereotype instead. Yeah, now there's no word for prejudice, which is a bit of a problem. You can say virtue, but you can't really do it like without sounding extremely archaic. So it's like it's this language where there are a lot of really important things that just cannot be expressed because the vocabulary just doesn't exist. And often the vocabulary used to exist, but just doesn't exist anymore because you know the politics have changed, and so like it's basically, you know, it's sort of like it's like Sovietized language basically at this point. Yeah, I'm not too keen on my native language, but yeah, it's Danish, which I mean it does have the advantage that it has a lot of vowels, so I am pretty good at telling apart even subtle nuances in vowels because they will sound completely different to a Danish ear, you know. Although there are also Danes who struggle to tell apart vowels, even vowels they do have in Danish and can tell apart when it comes to Danish, but I can't tell apart when it comes to singing songs in English, which is crazy to me. But yeah. you will share with me, share language, share what? uh, what will you share? As I walked out of a London bridge one misty morning. How does it actually go? Sorry, this key, it's gonna be easier to figure out. As I walked out, of a London bridge. One misty morning early, one misty morning early, I overheard a fair pretty maid. When you say not trying but just doing, is there another way of thinking about it? I don't care about my singing at all when vocalizing. This makes it feeling like I'm not using any effort to sing. Is this the same, or what do you mean? So not trying but just doing is about a different intent. Like you can resolve to attempt something, or you can resolve to succeed at it. Of course, even resolving to succeed at it isn't necessarily a guarantee that you will succeed. But this sort of mindset of I will try this is a different mindset than I will do this. You know, it's like there's a sort of layer of separation you add in whenever you say I will try to do something. Like at that point, there's always an implicit attempt. Like if you say I'm going to open that door, like for all you know, the door could be blocked, right? And then you will fail, but you might not know that. So you just think, okay, of course I'm going to open that door. And when you say I am going to open that door, it means that you are going to try to open it. But if you say I'm going to try to open that door, it means that you are going to try to open it. So there's an extra try in there. As soon as you resolve to try something, what you will actually be doing is you will try to try. And that basically means that as soon as you've put in what seems to you like an adequate attempt, it will seem like sufficient effort. And it's like, okay, you tried. But actually you just tried to try. You might not even really have tried. And so that's the problem. There's a problem with this sentence of, I will try to do this. It's like, no, do or do not. There is no try, as Yoda said. And this is sort of related to the deflationary theory of truth, when people say, you know, I believe X, if they just say X is true, right, then they're expressing a belief in X, right? But if they say I believe in X, then they're no longer talking about X, they're talking about their own state of belief. So they're expressing a belief about their own state of belief, right? This is sort of implicit I believe in there, and so if you also make an explicit one, then you have basically two. You have both the explicit I believe and the implicit one. And similarly with I will try, you know, there's an implicit I will try. Whenever you say that you're going to do something, there's an implicit I will try, because you cannot be completely sure that you will succeed, right? But there's an implicit I will try, and there's still an implicit I will try, even if you have an explicit I will try. So if you have that explicit I will try to sing, then you still get the implicit I will try. So you actually get I will try to sing. And yeah, this is the lame half-assed effort. Yeah, but it's also it also. So that's a bit different from the sense of just going for it. There's a relation there, because like when you resolve to try something, your intentionality is directed inwards. You're too concerned with the state of mind, too concerned with whether you're trying or not, rather than concerned with like the actual action. and so you gotta direct that outward somehow. You gotta be less like whenever you say I believe X, or I'm trying to do Y, you're sort of stuck in your own head a little bit, because you're actually sort of commenting on your own intentions and your own beliefs rather than on uh, rather than on something external. um, and um, and so it's sort of a weaker resolve in a sense, but it's also more like it's more reflective. So that's how it relates to the just going for it. Like the just going for it is getting out of that reflective mode. And whenever you resolve to try something, or whenever you claim that you believe something, you're basically being reflective, and you're not focused on the outside world. Um, and yeah, so the so it contains this element of basically deflation, of removing this extra I will try, so that you have only one of them, like you only have the implicit one and not the explicit one as well. And that basically makes the effort less half-assed, but it also makes you more sort of turned outwards, makes you less stuck in your mind. Anyway, so feel like not using any effort, not really the same thing, unless you mean like minimal cognitive effort, because this is related to the Taoist concept of effortless action. But it's not necessarily related to using less physical effort. It does tend to lead to less physical effort, but it doesn't have to. T Phalange just got off work, late to the party. Welcome. Why is pharyngeal voice considered the hardest to master? Well, because so the way to do it, typically, there are two ways to find it mainly. One is to build it out of falsetto by adding a lot of twang to falsetto, right? Hey! 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 Right, that's one way to find pharyngeal voice. So it gives you that's easiest with open vowels, finding like yell timbre in pharyngeal voice. It's less easy to do if you have like an it can still be done, but it's a lot harder, right? For closed vowels, it's easier to do this kind of thing. I'm doing terrible at it today for some reason. Probably my energy levels are too low. You can see I'm a little bit tired today. But yeah, it's hard to master, because it basically you develop it out of you develop it either out of falsetto, and then you need a pretty good falsetto to do that. Pretty good falsetto and pretty good command of twang and yell timbre, right? So that's like pretty difficult control to achieve, especially for a beginner. The alternative approach requires you to have a very good cry register that you can control well enough to make it very light, right? This is already quite difficult. And that's sort of the starting point for pharyngeal voice. But you can also find pharyngeal voice by just sort of squeaking haphazardly and gradually getting better at squeaking, which is a pretty easy way of finding pharyngeal voice. So yeah, you could just like make weird sounds like and no, actually that would probably give you a pharyngalized mix. But well, anyway, but you can also actually start out by teaching pharyngeal voice as the first thing. Greg does this actually, and that is sort of more conducive to what I think of as the lyrical school. I mean, there are several schools of lyrical singing, but I feel like approaches to singing can broadly be categorized into like lyrical versus dramatic, or lyrical versus declamative, maybe. I guess you could also say flowery versus declamative. So basically, like Greg will teach you how to be a high tenor, and he will teach you that right off the bat. Whereas I would have you start out as basically a baritone, or even a baritone at the very beginning. And so the advantage of Greg's approach is basically of like teaching pharyngeal voice first is that you learn to have access to pharyngeal voice a lot sooner. You learn to have facility in a high range with like closed vowels and light singing a lot sooner than you do with my method. The disadvantage is that you spend a lot more time practicing exercises before you start working on songs. And also it like developing a sort of rich, strong chest voice will be one of the last things you wind up doing. So there's sort of advantages and disadvantages to both orders of operation, to both approaches, right? But yeah, it's the hardest to master. Pharyngeal voice is definitely the hardest to master. I think Greg would actually agree with me there, but it can still be done right off the bat if you positively insist. So it's not so hard that you necessarily need to put it off to the end like I do. But anyway, good point about trying. I was joking. We have plenty of words in America. Yeah, English is a lot of words because of course English is this this language is sort of a blend of so many different languages, mainly German, French, Latin, and Greek, right? But it's this sort of fusion language kind of thing. Yeah, anyway, and especially if you read somewhat older books and you can have a slightly archaic vocabulary, then you'll see English really has a lot of great words. But yeah, there's something similar happening to English as happened to Denmark, to Danish. It's just sort of taking longer, but it's still also the English language is also basically becoming Sovietized, just more slowly, because there are more words to lose. But the word virtue, for example, is gradually, becoming it's gradually falling out, and the word prejudice just sounds like a euphemism for being a right winger or something. It's completely lost its original meaning, which is basically arriving at an evaluation before having exercised proper judgment, right? Hence pre-judgment, prejudice, right? And basically the opposite of prejudice isn't being non-judgmental. The opposite of prejudice is judgment. It's just having a proper, trained judgment that you apply before coming to your evaluation. Anyway, let's see. Reinforced falsetto versus pharyngeal voice. Reinforced falsetto is still falsetto, basically. It doesn't necessarily blend with chest voice in any way. So if I do something like, oh, hey, hey, let's make it a bit more reinforced. Hey, hey, that's reinforced falsetto. This is still very distinctly falsetto. I could also do that with sort of more mixy sound. Oh, oh, right. It's pretty squarely falsetto. So reinforced falsetto typically features more compression. Actually, maybe features more compression than I just demonstrated there. Let me try a sort of more typical. Oh, oh, right, something like that. That would be a typical reinforced falsetto. And it's not really strong enough to be a proper pharyngeal voice. Is it equally difficult to... No, wait, before that. Since we're talking this, is Tyler Weisung and SLS's mixed mostly pharyngalized mix, by the way? Yeah, but it's not necessarily pharyngalized enough to blend with falsetto. That sort of depends. But yeah, it tends to go more in the pharyngalized direction than the cried direction, or for that matter, the sort of belty sounding direction. You mentioned that your voice type opinion is an unpopular one. Would you mind if you briefly explained it to us? Yeah, okay. So I my position, there's basically I have sort of two positions there. One is that voice types definitely exist. They're definitely a real thing. There's a meaningful difference between being a baritone and being a tenor, right? But also it's not innate. And it has more to do with personality than with vocal anatomy. If you can learn a tenor personality, that will basically make you able to sing tenor. So basically voice types have to do with very deep differences in technique, not just the absence of a lot of people will say that a tenor is a baritone who has learned to mix. That's completely false. You can mix and still sound like a baritone. it's very deep differences in vocal technique that makes a person sound like a baritone or a tenor or a baritone or a bass or you know, a countertenor or like or a high tenor. Very deep differences that are not so easily changed, right? So even the chest voice of a baritone will be quite different. Like the chest register of a baritone will be quite different from the chest register of a baritone. The baritone will have this like slower, smooth baritone quality, whereas a baritone will have this like heroic, active quality. And yeah, these are things that go very deep and like really involve like growing your personality. If you want to like change your voice type, you have to sort of grow your personality to encompass that voice type. And that's not easily done. So there are these like deep differences, but they're just not like, they're not mostly anatomy. Like anatomy might predispose you slightly towards one voice type or the other, but really it's much more personality. And yeah, it's anyway, and it's also like how you were taught. Of course, you can be taught in ways that really develop a baritonal quality, and taught in ways that really develop a tenor quality. Is it equally difficult going from a classical tenor system to a contemporary pop tenor system in both ways? I mean, no, not really. So, like operatic tenor singing is just harder than pop tenor singing. Like there are some, like you could elevate pop tenor singing to a level that's as difficult as operatic tenor singing, but you know, the demands of operatic repertoire are really tough, and the demands of pop repertoire are not as tough. So like there are some pop tenors who are definitely on the level of an average classical tenor. There are also some that are beyond the level of an average classical tenor. Like Grieg, for example, is a better pop tenor than the average operatic tenor is at opera, I would say. And so it is definitely possible to elevate it in that sense, but sort of on average, I'd say it's probably harder to go from contemporary to classical than from classical to contemporary. So yeah, more questions. Well, I guess we've only 9 minutes left, but there's still enough time for some questions. Meanwhile, I will see if I can figure out how the chords to the song. I completely forgot the chords of. Maybe play it differently. As I walked out over London Bridge, one misty morning early. Well, so he Michael Jackson used a lot of falsetto for high notes, but also a lot of, sort of very light mixed voice, and yeah, let me see. Does he use like a very light choral register as well at times? No, I don't think so, actually. I think it's all very mixy. And yeah, it's like develop that to a very high level of proficiency, and make it very light. So Freddie Mercury, very interesting technique, I would say. His chest register isn't all that strong, but his choral register very strong, and you know, it created this like closed timbre choral register with a fairly dark, warm tone high up in pitch. It's quite difficult to do. Opera tenor sings mostly in chest voices, almost exclusively in chest voice. There's very little mixed voice in operatic tenor singing, at least in like good operatic tenor singing. It's a little bit for like pianissimos, like if you have the Total cibacio languide carezze, mentre io fremente le belle forma risciolate. You know, the sort of soft high notes there are in mixed voice. So there's some mixed voice used occasionally when you really need that restrained quality, but they only use that for effect in opera. They don't use it like as a matter of course. Even for the softer volumes, you typically just make the chest voice a little bit less dramatic, a little bit more mezza voce. But if you want something that really sounds restrained and like tense, then you would use it. Yeah. Let's see if it is. Anyway, so yeah. What is it? You know, hang on, let me just look up the key of Beat It and see if I can demonstrate a bit of what Michael Jackson is doing. I'll probably be a bit less light than I'm doing it when I'm doing it. I'm not quite used to singing quite as bright as he does, quite as bright and light. But let's see if I can demonstrate something at least anyway. Whoa! Oh! I'm just gonna find the coordination. Whoa! They told him, don't you ever come around here. Don't wanna see your face, you better disappear. The fire's in their eyes and the words are really clear, so beat it. Oh, this is freaking high. But anyway. Let's see. You better run, you better do what you can. I don't wanna see no blood and be a macho man. You wanna be tough. You wanna be tough, better do what you can, so beat it. It's actually a bit more chesty than I remembered it being. Let me see. Yeah, actually, no, never mind. I was wrong. This is not mixed voice. He's actually like belting this. This is very light belting. This makes it even harder. Okay. Let me just do the golden registration exercise, and I'll see if I can. Okay. Let me do it here as well. They told him, don't you ever come around here. Don't wanna see your face, you better disappear. The fire's in their eyes and the words are really clear, so beat it. You know, it's bright belting. It's brighter belting than I'm doing there, but it's basically bright belting. So if I slow it down, morning voice. Because it's clear timbre as a B flat. Pretty difficult. Okay. Okay. Close enough. You better run, you better do what you can. Don't wanna see no blood, don't be a macho man. Right, so it's belting, right? And it just makes it brighter. Let me see if I can make it brighter. Okay. You better run, you better do what you can. Don't wanna see no blood, don't be a macho man. You wanna be tough, better do what you can, so beat it. You know, it's just bright belting. I don't think that's the only thing he does. I'm pretty sure he also does mixed voice for something. Let me see if he does that in Smooth Criminal. I think that's a mix he's singing there at least. No, the high notes are falsetto there. I see. but they have a sort of tense quality like the mixed voice. It's a restrained falsetto he uses for the high notes. Like this is so it's like a falsetto made to sound a little bit like a mixed voice. That's why I thought it was mixed voice. But yeah, anyway. How to get super good at chest and chords? Practice the golden registration exercise. And once you've gotten the hang of that, just take it higher. But practice also the this riff kind of quality. And then as you get good at that, you can take it higher, you can make it sort of more screamy. You can even add more steps to it, like right, and then it goes up to an E flat there at the top, E flat 5. And once you've got the hang of that, you can incorporate that into your golden registration exercise. And once you've gotten the hang of that, to make the top note a bit less screamy, you can close the timbre. And you can do that by doing this, where the first one is open and the second one is closed. So like this. Right? So and once you can do that, then it's just a matter of practicing applying it to songs. You know, Defying Gravity is a great song to practice applying this to, because it's so high and like it's a lot of articulation up high in pitch. Let It Go is another great one. So these high pitched belty songs, in my life, I'm no longer a child, and I yearn for the truth that you know. That's another good one. Or Firework by Katy Perry, also a good one. You also get those E flats there. Anyway, thoughts on the saying, obsession beats talent. The capacity for obsession is part of talent, though. Like, you know, can you imagine Homer Simpson's getting obsessed with singing, right? It's like, it's hard to imagine. So that capacity for obsession is a very large part of what talent is. So talent, there's two main things I would call talent. One is this drive. Well, no, actually 3 main things. There's drive, which is basically this capacity for obsession, to, like, you know, fight really hard to achieve a goal. And then there is general intelligence, which is basically if you do a factor analysis of cognitive performance, right? You test people's cognitive performance across a wide range of skills. You do a factor analysis because people want to figure out how many different intelligences are there, right? People are like, oh, there must be like verbal intelligence, spatial intelligence, and so on. Well, people did a factor analysis of cognitive performance, and they found that the answer to how many types of intelligence there are, that answer is 1. There's one type of intelligence, general intelligence. You can have a predisposition towards math that seems to have more to do with interest than actual, like, brain power, right? And this sort of really crystallizes after puberty, by the way. Like, a lot of people just lose interest in math. Yeah, but it seems like it seems more about, like, these specializations seem to have more to do with interest than with different types of intelligence per se. There are sub-factors of general intelligence. They're strongly correlated because that's how you get a single general factor. But those sub-factors have names like fluid intelligence, crystallized intelligence, working memory, that sort of thing. Yeah, that's not really the types of intelligence people are familiar with. So yeah, there's and this sort of general intelligence is, of course, what's measured by IQ, and IQ tests are predictive. It turns out IQ tests are predictive not only of your success in in academic subjects, but also of your, like, lifetime income, your longevity even, and your performance in sports, which is another one that really surprised people, that, you know, IQ is actually predictive of your success in sports. And in social situations, it's another one that surprised people, but yeah, actually it's like high intelligence is positively associated with social skills. And it's, however, I believe it's anti-correlated with happiness, which is interesting because it's correlated with basically everything else that's usually deemed a good thing. But anyway, so it's so there's this drive, this like capacity for obsession, and then there's intelligence, and the third one is just virtue as such, right? Rectitude in particular, the ability, like the desire to do the right things, do them the right way, and for the right reason, right? That's practically like that seems to be largely an innate virtue, really. Like this desire to do good and be good, and like, you know, for good reasons. That seems to be largely innate. And so these three things, the capacity for obsession, raw intelligence, and this desire for rectitude, those are the three aspects of talent. Like, those are the three things I would call talent, and those things are very, very, very important. But you don't necessarily need all three of them, right? You don't necessarily need a lot of raw brain power, right? So that's maybe what you meant by talent, right? So like obsession combined with rectitude definitely beats intelligence that's lacking in those two others, right? If you have intelligence but you have no drive and you have no rectitude, then yeah, you won't get far. I mean, you might get a high-paid position. You might get far enough to become like a full-time programmer and like and you know, a six-figure salary, but you're not gonna become masterful at many things. If you have like, you wouldn't be able to go far in singing just by raw intelligence. You'd also need the drive and the rectitude, or at least one of the two, right? I think rectitude is actually pretty rare even among like skilled singers. You can tell from like very questionable musicality and like lots of tacky showing off. It's sort of at odds with rectitude. But yeah, if you have just rectitude and drive, but like pretty average intelligence, you can probably still become world class at something if you have very high drive and very high rectitude. If you have all three, right, if you have raw intelligence and rectitude and drive, you can probably become world class in like 5, 6, 10 different disciplines, you know, which is not gonna happen otherwise. Yeah, it's I mean, there's a great deal of luck involved as well, like the luck of having come across the right resources, right? You know, having come across my channel, for example. I mean, there's luck involved there. It's not just luck. I mean, there's also like the desire to seek out new, like, you know, that's also a sort of lack of complacency. So it's not completely like, there's also some merit in, you know, in coming across the right resources. But there's also a component of luck, of happening to be in the right place at the right time, and so on. Yeah. So that's my thoughts on the saying obsession beats talent. It's sort of true, except I'd say obsession is part of talent. So it's really like you're saying, like one type of talent beats another type of talent. And yeah, I'd say like the obsessive talent probably beats this raw brain power talent on the whole. I'm still working on getting rid of restraint. Would it be unproductive to work on falsetto and head register right now? No, that would actually be helpful. Falsetto and head register will help remove the restraint, probably. Especially the head register. But yeah, falsetto as well. Like if you do the bright, breathy falsetto, so the Princess like, you know, for the first time in forever. That can be effective for removing restraint. And head registers definitely as well. You know, some classical countertenor singing would probably be very helpful even. You know, like nella fantasia esiste un vento caldo che soffia sulle città come amico io sogno d'anime. So that kind of thing should also help. And there'll be, of course, head register higher up in that song. Anyway, I just recording a song. Forgot about the live. Yeah, I mean the live is about to end. We've already gone over time. Not sure I will do a Zoom meeting. I'm kind of too. Actually, maybe I will. How many people here would join the Zoom meeting? Drop a message in the chat if you join the Zoom. Whatever. I will probably just end the live stream. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in and for the questions, especially came here in this last half hour. It would have been nice if we could have gotten them earlier, but that's all right. I think the activity will pick up again, especially like when summer ends. Like right now, we're like smack dab in the middle of the summer, and yeah, that means a lot of people are on vacations. So I think that's why the activity is a bit less than usual. Or maybe it's just because I'm looking so dead inside right now because sleep deprived. I actually like went to bed at a not too bad time for like having to get up to have the stream, but it was just so warm I couldn't sleep. It was crazy warm. Anyway, but yeah, thank you all for tuning in, and thank you Zach for the super chat, and yeah, see you all, and hopefully next time or the time after that, and you know, the video, like hope you'll watch the video that's coming out on Sunday and so on. Anyway, I'm gonna pop off now. It's been a pleasure. Take care.